Hey everybody, my name is Mark Doerman, and the topic of my discussion that I chose was privacy. So I want to look at that as how it relates to employees and what's being monitored by them, by their IT department and the company itself. So let's go ahead and get into it. Is privacy a right? So the first thing I'd like to look at is why do companies want to monitor their employees? What's the benefit they have for this? So in the privacy discussion and dilemma is always important to look at why. So primary reasons that companies would like to track and monitor their employees is they want to see the productivity they're putting out. They also want to ensure that any confidential company information is not being sent out, whether that be through an email or whatever it may be. They want to monitor employee conduct. This is something that could come, for like a harassment or a discrimination case, tracking to see, what was said in the past and what sort of relationship has been built, and also inappropriate internet usage. They want to monitor and see, what you're looking at on company time and with your company computer or phone or tablet, whatever it may be. So this is something I found interesting. In the U.S., it's assumed that it's a assumed practice, but according to the Society for Human Resource Management, companies in the UK can only monitor their employees' information if the employee has been notified through a policy or contract. So, since this is an information systems class, I figured it'd be best to look at the electronic privacy in the workplace. So there's three key points I want to hit, the first of which being monitoring the computer and the workstation itself. Two would be communications, whether that be email, instant messenger, phone, tablet, or any sort of personal device. Three would be personal information on the workplace computer. So what you're looking at maybe on your own time, whether that's at lunch or break. My first point we're going to be looking at is the computer and the workstation itself. Companies can often install monitoring software to track an employee's computer. Some of the access that this could include would be on-screen or stored information. So if it's on-screen, they can actually check and look at what you're looking at in real time, or some of the stored information you have on the files. So this can also track the time spent away from your computer. So maybe a manager thinks you're taking too many breaks and they want to monitor and see, well, how long are these breaks? Are they 15 minutes or are they 45 minutes? Something else they can look into is keystroke monitoring. So this would be something that would be very important for like a data analyst job, somebody that's inputting a lot of data. Maybe that be in like an APAR setting. They want to track and see, how much you're inputting. Maybe peak times to see when people are most productive. But that would be something that I'm sure a lot of companies would like to look into. And then most of the software that the employers have, they monitor their employees without them even knowing. A lot of employees don't know that they're being monitored in this sort of capacity. So, continuing on with the computer and workstation monitoring, one of the biggest reasons for computer monitoring is for internet usage. So, employers want to track what their employees are looking at via their work computer. So employers need to monitor this for a variety of reasons. They want to track what outside websites are being visited by their employees, and also maybe how many employees are accessing it. Is this a common theme throughout the entire company? So a good example right now would be fantasy football websites. I know at my work we have one of the fantasy football websites blocked, but there's several others that are available to get on. But I know this is a big time for this, and people often check this at work. They also want to analyze how much time is spent on non-work related websites. So how many hours of your day are you spending on these websites? They also want to monitor any inappropriate websites being visited. According to an article from Forbes, in 2013, 25% of working adults admitted to looking at porn on their computer at work. So, I mean, this is something that I personally would have never thought to be an issue until, I looked into it and found that there are people doing this at work. So, and then the graph off to the right shows, a breakdown of different websites that are commonly looked at, and you see your Googles, your Facebook, and LinkedIn. LinkedIn is something interesting to me for a recruiting professional in HR. That would be something good to look at. They're scanning through potential candidates, but if Joe in accounting is spending a lot of time on LinkedIn, well, why is he spending a lot of time on LinkedIn? So I thought that was interesting. And then just another statistic, uh, 39% of people in a study done admitted that they spend at least an hour a week uh, doing non-work activities on their computer. And this can escalate. 3% of people admitted to doing 10 plus hours per week, wasting time on their computer. So the next point I want to cover is communications monitoring. And as mentioned previously, there's a couple different parts I'm going to look into, but the first one is email monitoring. This is the most common type of communications monitoring. Companies generally have email running through a server, which saves all emails sent and received. Deleted emails are backed up on server and permanently stored for a record. This can be important when companies face issues such as harassment and discrimination. I kind of mentioned this in the beginning, but this is a common thing in workplaces, harassment and discrimination. I believe it's in pretty much every company. So if you do have these issues, it's great to have email backup saying, well, here's a clear example of you, harassing or discriminating, whatever it may be. So companies want to have this information. It could be very beneficial to them later on. And personally, I think it's something they should be able to have. So one thing that's interesting is employers often have employees sign documents disclosing that email will be monitored. I think this is a good policy for companies to put in place just to be transparent with their employees, saying, hey, we will be monitoring this, so be careful with what you're sending on your work email. The second form of communications monitoring I wanted to touch on was instant messenger services. So this is becoming very popular. It's a, in my mind, much needed tool for business professionals because they are able to quickly communicate throughout the company. So long are the days of walking over across the office to talk to somebody to get some quick answers. Now you can just hop on Skype, send them a quick message. So instant messenger services like Skype for business can be linked to email services so that all chat history is stored. This is something we utilize at my company, which is very beneficial to the employee itself because you're able to actually go back and look at your conversations. So if you ask a question for someone and you don't want to have to ask again, you can go back and look at what you previously said. So IM information can also pass through servers similar to email for monitoring and storing. So this is being backed up and not just in your email. And IM is often considered to be a major cause for distraction at work, leading to low productivity. This is something that was very prevalent in my company. People were using IM more for personal reasons rather than business as a business function. So, planning the next happy hour or talking to your friends, whatever it may be, people were using this and it's causing a distraction time. The last part of communications monitoring is through the phone. So company-provided cell phones and desk phones are essentially an extension of an employee's computer. These devices are subject to the same level of monitoring. Not all companies have policies set in place to monitor cell phones, though, and personal cell phones are often used for work purposes. This poses issues with privacy protection laws. Um, privacy's, Privacy policies differ between each employee relationship, so nothing is the same. You can't assume one company is doing the same thing as the other. And employees are often asked to install an app to monitor activity on what's called BYOD, or bring your own devices. So if you're using your own phone for work functions, they want to be able to make sure, hey, are we being protected on this front too? What information is going out via this cell phone? Personal information is the last point I wanted to touch on. This can be a little tricky because there's a lot of gray areas in terms of privacy here. In most cases, companies need to have some sort of agreement or policy in place outlining what they do and don't monitor, especially when it becomes the information that's non-work related. So as previously mentioned, companies can monitor what you have on your screen at any given moment, and this leaves you very susceptible to leaking personal information if you're using your work computer for personal needs. So this allows them to see any information accessed through your computer at any given moment. So if you pull up your personal email, on your break or during lunch, they can see this information as well. It's just because you're on a break doesn't mean the monitoring stops. And one thing to note is servers often do not differentiate between personal email and work email accounts. So if you're sending out a email, maybe the server can't tell the difference between your personal and your work email. With Xavier, we have the Microsoft Outlook, and that's exactly what we use at my company. So I assume that they can look at this as well. When I was putting together this presentation, I actually went down to my IT department to check and see, of the things that I've listed in this presentation, what are we currently doing at our company? So they informed me, that they are tracking every email being sent. It's being saved on a server, so they can go look at that at any time. But they must have reason and permission to look at these emails. Just because you're in IT and you have access doesn't mean you can go look at them. Also, during the onboarding process, all employees sign a disclosure for legal purposes stating that all emails are stored and subject for review. And subsequently, they're currently drafting a similar disclosure for all employees who are giving a work cell phone. An issue they have right now is data overages. So they want to be able to look and see, why are they going over on their data? Are they using their work phone for a reason, or are they looking at Facebook on their work phone causing data overages? And they also have software in place to track every single website visited. This can be traced to every computer and subsequently each employee. Below are a couple of the questions I have for discussion on this. Do you know your own employer's personal privacy policy? And have you signed any documents acknowledging you understand this? Is it acceptable for employers to monitor their employees in the capacity that they do or can do? And are there any areas you believe IT should improve its monitoring? Are there areas that they should scale back on? So thank you for tuning in for my presentation. I look forward to seeing your discussion later.